The promises you break to yourself hurt more than the promises other people break to you. Because every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow," and don't, every time you promise to wake up early, exercise, study, save money, or finally change, a quiet message is sent deep into your mind. I can't trust myself. That message is rarely spoken out loud, but it shapes the way you see yourself. Over time, confidence fades. Not because you failed once, but because you stopped believing your own words. You begin to hesitate before making commitments. You lower your expectations. You convince yourself that maybe discipline just isn't who you are. And without realizing it, you build a life around broken promises instead of kept ones. The painful truth is that most people don't lose because they lack intelligence, talent, or opportunity. They lose because they no longer believe they will do what they say they will do. Why do some people stay consistent while others keep starting over? Why does motivation disappear the moment life becomes uncomfortable? Why do tiny daily choices seem so insignificant, yet quietly determine the direction of an entire life? And what if self-discipline has never been about forcing yourself at all? What if the real battle isn't between laziness and effort, but between the identity you carry and the habits that reinforce it every single day? In this audiobook, you will explore the hidden psychology behind self-discipline. You will discover why willpower so often fails, why your brain resists change even when you desperately want it, and how small promises, kept consistently, can reshape your identity from the inside out. You will learn why discipline is not a feeling you wait for, but a relationship you build with yourself. A relationship based on trust, on consistency, on actions that prove your words still matter. By the end of this journey, you may look at your habits differently. You may think about confidence differently. Most importantly, you may never make another promise to yourself the same way again. Stay with this message until the very end, because sometimes the life you've been trying to build doesn't begin with one extraordinary decision. It begins the moment you become someone who finally believes their own word. Chapter 1. Why most people keep breaking their own promises. The hardest promises to keep are rarely the ones you make to other people. They are the ones you make in silence. The promise to wake up earlier tomorrow. The promise to stop wasting another evening. The promise to begin exercising, to read more, to control your temper, to save money, to finish what you started. No one else hears these promises. No one applauds them. No one reminds you when you forget them. Yet every one of them shapes the person you become. Many people believe that failure begins the moment they quit. It begins much earlier. It begins the moment they stop believing their own words. That change is almost invisible. There is no dramatic event, no loud warning. Only a quiet shift inside the mind. I'll do it tomorrow. Then tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. Eventually the promise disappears, but something else remains. Doubt. Every broken promise leaves behind a small question. Can I really trust myself? At first, the question is easy to ignore. Life continues, work continues, friends still smile, family still speaks kindly. From the outside, nothing seems different, but inside, something important has changed. Confidence is often misunderstood. Most people think confidence comes from success or praise or achievement. Those things can create excitement, but they cannot create lasting confidence. Real confidence comes from evidence. Evidence that you keep your word, especially when nobody's watching. Imagine two people standing in front of the same opportunity. Both have talent, both have knowledge, both have similar resources. One moves forward with calm certainty. The other hesitates. The difference is not intelligence, it is memory. One remembers hundreds of promises kept. The other remembers hundreds of promises abandoned. Your mind is always collecting evidence about who you are. It listens less to your intentions than to your actions. You may tell yourself you are disciplined. Your mind asks one simple question. What happened yesterday? You may say you are changing. Your mind quietly asks, what did you actually do? The mind believes repetition more than motivation. That is why self-discipline is deeply connected to psychology. Your identity is not built by what you hope to become. It is built by what you repeatedly prove. This is why so many people feel trapped. They continue making larger promises. Tomorrow I will change everything. Tomorrow I will become a different person. Tomorrow I will never procrastinate again. The promise grows larger, but the evidence remains small. Eventually the gap becomes painful. You begin to admire the person you imagine more than the person you actually are. That distance creates frustration. Not because your dreams are impossible, because your daily actions no longer support them. Most people respond to this frustration in the wrong way. They demand more motivation. They search for another book, another video, another morning routine, another secret, another shortcut. For a few days they feel inspired. Energy returns. Everything seems possible. Then ordinary life arrives. The alarm rings. The weather feels unpleasant. Work becomes stressful. A friend invites them out. Their mood changes. The old habits quietly return. Once again they wonder, what is wrong with me? Perhaps nothing is wrong. Perhaps they have simply misunderstood the problem. The problem is rarely effort. It is trust. Think about any healthy relationship. Trust is not built through beautiful speeches. It is built through consistency. Someone says they will arrive at 6. They arrive at 6. Someone promises to help. They help. Someone keeps showing up. Eventually, trust becomes natural. The same principle exists within yourself. Every promise you keep is a conversation with your future. Every promise you break is also a conversation. One strengthens your identity, the other weakens it. Your future is always listening. There is another mistake many people make. They believe discipline begins with difficult actions. It does not. It begins with honest actions. If you promise 10 minutes, do 10 minutes. If you promise 1 page, read 1 page. If you promise 1 walk around the block, take 1 walk. Small promises seem insignificant, but they create something invisible. Self-respect. Without self-respect, even great achievements feel empty. With self-respect, even small victories feel meaningful. Consider a simple example. Imagine someone decides to exercise every morning. The first day they complete an hour. The second day they skip. The third day they feel guilty. The fourth day they promise to restart on Monday. Months pass like this. Nothing changes. Now imagine another person. They exercise for only 10 minutes. Some mornings they feel energetic. Some mornings they feel tired. Some mornings they would rather stay in bed. Yet they continue. Not perfectly, but consistently. After several months, something surprising happens. The exercise matters less than the identity it creates. They no longer think, I hope I become disciplined. They quietly realize, I am someone who keeps showing up. That sentence changes everything. Because identity influences behavior. Behavior reinforces identity. The cycle becomes stronger every day. Most people wait to feel different before acting differently. Wise people act differently until they naturally feel different. This is one of the hidden truths about psychology. Feelings are often followers, not leaders. They respond to repeated action, not hopeful intention. You do not become trustworthy after believing in yourself. You become trustworthy after repeatedly keeping your word. The belief comes afterward. This order matters. Many lives remain stuck because people reverse it. They wait for confidence before taking action. Confidence waits for action before appearing. There's another quiet danger hidden inside broken promises. Eventually you stop making them. That sounds peaceful. It is not. It is surrender disguised as realism. You stop dreaming. And not because dreams disappeared, because disappointment became familiar. You tell yourself you are simply being practical. Deep inside, you are protecting yourself from another broken promise. That protection feels safe, but it slowly shrinks your world. A smaller life often begins with smaller expectations. You stop asking, what could I become? You begin asking, what can I avoid failing at? Those questions create very different lives. One expands possibility, the other protects comfort. Comfort is rarely the enemy. Attachment to comfort is. Every meaningful change asks for temporary discomfort, not endless suffering, simply honest effort, repeated over time. The strange part is this: people willingly experience discomfort every day. They stay awake worrying, they carry guilt, they replay mistakes, they compare themselves to others, they criticize themselves. All of that is uncomfortable, yet it produces nothing. The discomfort of discipline is different. It creates growth. One discomfort drains you, the other strengthens you. You always choose between them, even when you do not realize it. Mind remembers every choice. That memory becomes character. Character is not built during extraordinary moments. It is built during ordinary mornings. Ordinary afternoons, ordinary evenings. It grows quietly, almost invisibly. Then one day people call it discipline. They assume it appeared naturally. They never saw the thousands of tiny promises beneath it. You may have noticed something curious. People often admire strength. They admire successful athletes, writers, leaders, artists, entrepreneurs. They see the result. They rarely notice the private promises, kept long before anyone applauded. Success is public. Discipline is private. Character grows in places where recognition never reaches. That is why loneliness can become a teacher. When no one is watching, every action becomes honest. You cannot perform discipline for an audience that does not exist. You discover who you really are. Those moments matter more than public victories, because they become the foundation beneath every future achievement. Ask yourself a simple question. How many promises have you made only because they sounded impressive? Now ask another. How many promises were small enough to keep, yet powerful enough to change you? The second question is far more important. Life rarely changes through dramatic declarations. It changes through repeated demonstrations. Every day, your actions answer one silent question. Can I depend on myself? There is no audience, no judge, no scorecard, only your own mind recording the answer. Sometimes the answer will be imperfect. That is part of being human. Discipline is not perfection. Perfection creates fear. Discipline creates progress. Missing one day does not destroy trust. Giving up on yourself does. The goal is never to become flawless. The goal is to become reliable. Reliable people recover quickly. They do not spend weeks criticizing themselves. They return again and again and again. This quiet return is more powerful than dramatic intensity. Intensity fades. Consistency remains. Eventually, your life begins reflecting your repeated choices. Not your strongest emotions, not your biggest ambitions, not your most inspiring plans, your repeated choices. That realization can feel disappointing. It can also feel liberating, because repeated choices are always available. You do not control every circumstance. You do control the next promise. You control whether your words and your actions move closer together. That distance defines much of your life. When your words repeatedly match your actions, peace quietly grows. Not because life becomes easier, because you no longer argue with yourself. Inner conflict begins to disappear. The energy once spent making excuses becomes available for building. building habits, building discipline, building character, building a life that feels honest. Perhaps that is what self-discipline has always meant, not controlling every emotion, not forcing yourself through endless struggle, not becoming someone else, simply becoming someone whose actions can be trusted. Someone who no longer needs grand promises, because small ones are never ignored. Someone who understands that every ordinary decision is quietly shaping an extraordinary identity. And perhaps the greatest promise you will ever keep is not the biggest one you ever make. It is the next small promise you choose not to break. Chapter 2. Discipline is an identity, not a feeling. Most people spend their lives waiting to feel ready. They wait to feel motivated. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel inspired. They believe action begins with emotion. But life quietly teaches a different lesson. The people who build remarkable lives are not the ones who always feel ready. They are the ones who act before the feeling arrives. This is where many people misunderstand self-discipline. They treat it as an emotion, something that appears on good days and disappears on difficult ones. When they wake up energized, they call themselves disciplined. When they wake up tired, they assume they have lost it. But discipline has never been a feeling. Feelings change with the weather. They change with sleep. They change with stress. They change because someone spoke harshly, or because nothing seemed to go right. If your discipline depends on your feelings, then your future depends on something that changes every hour. That is not stability. It is uncertainty. Real discipline is much quieter. It does not ask how you feel. It asks who you have decided to become. That question changes everything, because identity is stronger than emotion. An emotion visits, an identity stays. Imagine two people hearing the same alarm clock. Both are tired. Both slept poorly. Both would rather remain under the blanket. The first person thinks, "I don't feel like getting up." The second person thinks, "I am someone who gets up when I said I would." The situation is identical. The feeling is identical. Only the identity is different, and identity decides the action. This is why two people can experience the same discomfort and make completely different choices. One negotiates with the feeling, the other follows the identity. Most people ask themselves the wrong question every morning. They ask, "What do I feel like doing today?" Wise people ask, "What would the person I want to become do today?" The first question changes every day. The second rarely changes at all. That consistency creates stability, and stability creates trust. Many people believe identity is something they discover, as if it already exists somewhere, waiting to be found. But identity is not discovered, it is constructed, quietly, repeatedly, one decision at a time. Every action becomes a vote. Every promise kept is another vote. Every excuse is also a vote. You may not notice the election taking place inside your mind, but it never stops. Every day you cast countless votes for the kind of person you are becoming. Not the person you hope to become, the person you repeatedly practice being. That is why habits matter so deeply. A habit is never just a behavior. It is evidence. Evidence tells your mind what to believe. If every morning you get out of bed when you promised yourself you would, your mind begins collecting proof. I keep my word. If every evening you abandon your commitments because you feel tired, your mind collects different proof. I give up when it becomes uncomfortable. Neither statement is spoken aloud, yet both slowly become identity. This is how psychology quietly shapes character. Your brain does not become convinced through positive thinking. It becomes convinced through repeated experience. You can repeat affirmations every morning. You can stand in front of a mirror and declare that you are disciplined. But if your daily actions tell a different story, your mind believes the actions. Actions always speak more clearly than intentions. This is why identity cannot be borrowed. It cannot be purchased. It cannot be imagined into existence. It must be earned, not through perfection, through repetition. There's a common mistake people make when they begin changing their lives. They focus entirely on outcomes. They want to lose weight, earn more money, read more books, build a business, wake up earlier. These are worthy goals, but they remain incomplete because every goal quietly asks another question. What kind of person achieves this consistently? And that question matters more. Suppose someone wants to become healthier. They might ask, what diet should I follow? But a wiser question is, what would a healthy person naturally do today? The answer is often simple. Drink water, take a walk, eat one nourishing meal, sleep on time. Those actions may appear ordinary, yet repeated long enough, they transform identity. Eventually, healthy choices no longer feel forced. They feel natural. Not because life became easier, because the person changed. Most people chase temporary behavior. Wise people build permanent identity. There is an important difference. Temporary behavior depends on effort. Identity changes what feels normal. Think about someone who has never considered themselves a reader. Reading feels difficult, unnatural, easy to postpone. Now think about someone who quietly says, I am a reader. Notice how that sentence changes behavior. Reading is no longer an activity. It becomes part of who they are. Missing a day feels unusual, not because someone else expects it, because it no longer matches their identity. This is one of the hidden strengths of self-discipline. The goal is not to force yourself forever. The goal is to become someone who no longer argues with the right choice. Many people believe disciplined people possess extraordinary willpower. Often, they do not. They simply spend less energy negotiating. Negotiation is exhausting. I'll start tomorrow. Maybe after lunch. Just 5 more minutes. I deserve a break. Every negotiation drains attention. Identity removes many of those conversations. A person who identifies as honest does not debate whether to tell the truth every morning. A loving parent does not wake up wondering whether to care for their child. A musician does not ask whether music belongs in their life. These actions flow naturally because they are connected to identity. The same can become true for discipline. When discipline becomes part of who you are, daily decisions require less emotional effort. Not no effort, less effort. That difference matters. There will still be difficult mornings, stressful weeks, unexpected setbacks. Identity does not eliminate hardship. It provides direction during hardship. Imagine walking through a forest. Without a path, every step requires a decision. You hesitate. You second-guess yourself. You waste energy choosing. Now imagine the same forest with a clear trail. The journey is still long. There are still hills, still rain, still fatigue. But the direction is obvious. Identity creates that trail. Feelings become weather. Identity becomes the path. Weather changes, the path remains. There is another quiet truth. People often overestimate dramatic moments. They believe identity changes through one life-changing event. Sometimes those moments exist, but most transformation happens slowly, almost invisibly. One ordinary choice repeated hundreds of times eventually becomes character. Character becomes reputation. Reputation becomes destiny, not because fate decided it, because repetition shaped it. This is why tiny actions deserve respect. A single page read today may seem meaningless. One healthy meal appears insignificant. 5 minutes of practice feels almost too small to matter. Yet, identity notices. Identity never asks whether today's action was impressive. It asks whether today's action was consistent with who you are becoming. Small actions answer that question surprisingly well. The world often celebrates dramatic success. Quiet discipline rarely receives applause. No one congratulates you for going to bed on time. No one celebrates that you resisted unnecessary distractions. No one notices that you kept a promise only you remembered. Yet these invisible victories become the foundation of visible success. Every strong building depends on foundations hidden beneath the ground. Character works the same way. The strongest identities are usually invisible. You notice them only through their results. There is another misunderstanding worth examining. Many people fear committing to a disciplined identity. They quietly wonder, what if I fail? It seems safer to avoid making that commitment. If they never truly identify as disciplined, failure feels less personal. But avoiding identity does not protect confidence. It weakens it. Growth always requires vulnerability. You must become willing to see yourself differently before others ever do. That willingness feels uncomfortable, yet discomfort often marks the beginning of transformation. Ask yourself a simple question. What identity have your daily actions been reinforcing? Not your dreams, not your intentions, your actions. Have they been teaching your mind that you are reliable, or have they been teaching your mind that your words change with your mood? Neither answer is permanent. Identity is always under construction. That is one of the most hopeful truths about human psychology. You are never trapped by yesterday's decisions, but neither are you transformed by tomorrow's intentions. Only today's actions possess that power. Every sunrise offers another opportunity to cast a different vote. One promise, one decision, one repeated action. These seem almost too small to matter, until enough of them gather together. Then something remarkable happens. You stop trying to become disciplined. You begin living like someone who simply is. That shift cannot always be seen from the outside, but it changes everything inside. The voice of self-doubt grows quieter. Excuses lose their influence. Confidence no longer depends on motivation. It rests on evidence collected through countless ordinary moments. Eventually, you no longer say, "I hope I can trust myself." You simply act like someone who already does, and perhaps that is what real self-discipline has always been. Not forcing your life into shape through endless willpower, not chasing fleeting inspiration, not waiting for perfect conditions, but patiently building an identity so strong that your actions begin to flow from who you are rather than from how you feel. When that happens, discipline stops feeling like a struggle. It becomes a quiet expression of character, a natural reflection of the promises you have learned to keep. And from that point forward, every ordinary choice carries a deeper meaning. Because every choice is no longer asking what you want in this moment. It is revealing who you have become. Chapter 3. Small decisions build powerful character. Great character is almost never built in great moments. It is built in ordinary ones. The world celebrates dramatic victories. The promotion, the marathon, the finished book, the successful business, the transformation that everyone can see. But those visible moments are only the final page of a much longer story. Long before success becomes public, character has already been formed in private. It is shaped in the smallest decisions. The decision to get out of bed when no one is waiting. The decision to return the shopping cart. The decision to finish one more page before closing the book. The decision to put the phone away during dinner. The decision to tell the truth when a lie would be easier. Each decision appears too small to matter, yet each one quietly answers the same question. What kind of person am I becoming? Most people underestimate the power of small choices because they judge them one at a time. One missed workout seems harmless. One unhealthy meal feels insignificant. 1 hour of distraction appears impossible to notice. One broken promise sounds easy to excuse. And they are right. One decision rarely changes a life, but lives are not built by one decision. They are built by thousands of them. Character is not created in a single day. It is accumulated, like drops of water filling a lake. No single drop appears important. Remove enough drops, and eventually the lake disappears. The same is true for discipline. It grows quietly, not dramatically. You rarely notice yourself becoming more disciplined. Just as you rarely notice a tree growing each morning, growth hides inside repetition. That is why consistency often feels invisible. The rewards arrive slowly, sometimes so slowly that people become impatient. They begin searching for something bigger, something faster, something exciting. Yet the strongest foundations are rarely exciting. Imagine watching a stonecutter strike a massive rock. The first strike leaves no visible crack. Neither does the 10th or the 20th. To an observer, nothing seems to be happening. Then suddenly the rock splits apart. People often praise the final blow, but the final blow did not create the result alone. Every strike mattered. Every strike weakened the stone. Character grows the same way. Every disciplined choice leaves a mark. Most are too small to notice, until one day your life reflects them all. This is one of psychology's quiet truths. Your brain pays attention to repetition, not drama. Repetition teaches your mind what is normal. If you repeatedly choose comfort over responsibility, comfort becomes your default. If you repeatedly choose responsibility despite discomfort, responsibility becomes familiar. The first few times always feel difficult. That is natural. The unfamiliar often feels uncomfortable, but discomfort is not evidence that something is wrong. Very often, it is evidence that something is changing. Many people mistake discomfort for failure. They believe discipline should feel effortless. When it does not, they assume they lack self-control. The opposite is often true. The discomfort you experience may simply mean your old habits are losing their influence. Think about learning to write as a child. At first, every letter required attention. Your hand moved slowly. You made mistakes. It demanded concentration. Today, you barely think about it. What changed? Not the alphabet. You did. Repetition transformed effort into instinct. Habits are built in exactly the same way. At first, every disciplined decision asks for attention. Later, it asks only for consistency. Eventually, it becomes part of who you are. This is why small decisions deserve more respect than grand intentions. Grand intentions create excitement. Small decisions create identity. There's an important difference. Excitement fades, identity remains. Suppose someone decides to become healthier. On the first day, they imagine changing everything. They create a perfect meal plan, a strict exercise routine, a detailed schedule. Everything looks impressive. 3 days later, life becomes busy. The routine begins to crack. Soon the plan disappears, not because they lack desire, because they built a life around intensity instead of sustainability. Now imagine another person. They choose one small decision. Every morning, before looking at their phone, they drink a glass of water. Nothing dramatic happens. The next week, they add a 10-minute walk. A month later, they begin sleeping 30 minutes earlier. Each decision seems almost too small. Friends may not notice. Social media certainly will not celebrate it. Yet something more valuable is happening beneath the surface. They are teaching themselves a new identity. I am someone who follows through. That lesson reaches far beyond health. It begins influencing work, relationships, finances, learning, because character rarely stays inside one area of life. It spreads, just as neglect spreads. The person who regularly ignores small responsibilities often discovers larger responsibilities becoming overwhelming. The person who respects small responsibilities often finds larger ones becoming manageable, not because life became easier, because they became stronger. Strength is often misunderstood. Many imagine strength as something loud, a powerful speech, an impressive achievement, a fearless decision. Real strength is usually much quieter. It appears when nobody notices, when nobody applauds, when the easier option is available. Self-discipline is often invisible, precisely because it lives inside these moments. There's another reason small decisions matter. They protect you from becoming someone who only acts under pressure. Many people perform well when deadlines arrive, when someone is watching, when consequences become unavoidable. But character asks a different question. Who are you before the pressure appears? Do you prepare before the crisis? Do you practice before the competition? Do you study before the examination? Or do you depend on urgency to create action? Urgency can produce results, but it rarely builds peace. Living from deadline to deadline keeps the mind restless. Every task becomes an emergency. Every responsibility feels heavier than it truly is. Small daily decisions remove much of that burden. They replace panic with preparation. Preparation creates confidence. Confidence creates calm. Calm supports better decisions. The cycle strengthens itself. There is a hidden danger in believing that only big choices matter. You begin giving yourself permission to ignore the little ones. I'll clean it later. I'll apologize tomorrow. I'll start next week. I'll read after the holidays. I'll save money when I earn more. Each delay seems reasonable. Each excuse sounds logical. Yet together they shape a habit of postponement. Postponement, quietly, becomes identity. Without realizing it, you begin seeing yourself as someone who starts later. The calendar changes. The person remains the same. Wise people understand something different. They know today's smallest decision is tomorrow's biggest pattern. Patterns become habits. Habits become character. Character becomes destiny. Not through magic, through repetition. This is why every ordinary day deserves attention. Not because every day changes your life, because every day contributes to it. Imagine placing one brick each morning. One brick appears meaningless. After a week, the wall is still low. After a month, progress feels slow. After several years, an entire home stands where empty ground once existed. Nobody asks which brick mattered most. Every brick mattered. Character is built the same way. People often search for one life-changing habit, one perfect routine, one secret that explains successful people. But there is rarely one habit. There's a system of tiny decisions supporting each other. Sleeping on time makes waking easier. Waking earlier creates time to think. Thinking clearly improves decisions. Better decisions strengthen discipline. Discipline supports consistency. Consistency builds confidence. Confidence encourages greater responsibility. Everything connects. This is why no small decision exists in isolation. Each one influences another. Each one becomes part of a larger story. There is another lesson hidden here. Small decisions are honest. Large achievements can sometimes hide weakness. Someone may appear successful while privately lacking discipline. But everyday choices reveal truth. Do you return messages when you said you would? Do you arrive when you promised? Do you finish simple tasks before chasing exciting ones? Do you keep your space orderly? Do you treat people kindly, even when you gain nothing? These questions rarely make headlines, yet they reveal character more accurately than impressive accomplishments. Character is not measured by what you occasionally do. It is measured by what you repeatedly choose. That truth can feel uncomfortable. It can also feel freeing, because repeated choices remain within your control. You cannot always control opportunity. You cannot control the opinions of others. You cannot control unexpected events, but you can control many small decisions. You can choose honesty over convenience, preparation over procrastination, patience over impulse, listening over reacting, responsibility over excuses. Every one of these choices strengthens an invisible muscle, the muscle of self-respect. People often believe confidence comes from achieving difficult things. Sometimes it does, but lasting confidence usually grows from something simpler, knowing you can rely on yourself. That trust cannot be purchased. It cannot be borrowed. It must be earned, one ordinary decision at a time. Ask yourself this: if someone observed only your smallest daily choices, what kind of person would they believe you are? Would they see consistency, responsibility, calm, integrity? Or would they see distraction, delay, emotional reaction, broken promises? The answer matters, because your life is shaped less by your greatest intentions than by your smallest repeated actions. There is wisdom in becoming fascinated by the ordinary. Most people overlook it. They chase extraordinary experiences while neglecting ordinary discipline. Yet, extraordinary lives almost always rest upon ordinary habits practiced faithfully. The musician masters scales. The athlete repeats simple movements. The writer fills ordinary pages. The craftsman perfects basic skills. Mastery grows from repetition, not novelty. Your own character follows the same law. Each morning presents another opportunity, not to prove yourself to the world, but to quietly strengthen your relationship with yourself. Each small promise kept becomes another stone beneath your feet. Eventually, you notice something surprising. You no longer admire discipline from a distance. You recognize it within your own daily life, not because your choices became spectacular, but because they became dependable. And perhaps that is the deepest purpose of every small decision. Not merely to accomplish one task, but to shape the kind of person who can be trusted with greater ones. Because in the end, powerful character is never built through one extraordinary act of courage. It is built through countless ordinary moments when no one is watching, no one is applauding, and no one would have blamed you for choosing the easier path. Those quiet moments never seem important while you're living them. Yet one day, when you look back at the person you have become, you realize they were shaping you all along. Chapter 4. Why motivation? Always fails motivation is a beautiful beginning. It is a poor companion for a long journey. Almost everyone has experienced its power. You hear a powerful idea. You finish an inspiring book. You watch someone transform their life. Suddenly, everything feels possible. You promise yourself that this time will be different. You create a new routine. You organize your desk. You write ambitious goals. You imagine a future version of yourself with remarkable clarity. For a moment, that future feels close enough to touch. Then life quietly returns. The alarm rings earlier than expected. Work becomes demanding. Your energy fades. The weather changes. A difficult conversation lingers in your mind. Your schedule becomes crowded. The excitement that felt so powerful only days ago begins to disappear. Many people see this moment as proof that they are weak. They tell themselves they lack discipline. They assume other people possess some endless source of motivation that they simply cannot find. But the truth is far less dramatic. Motivation did exactly what it has always done. It arrived, it inspired, then it left. That is its nature. The mistake was never losing motivation. The mistake was expecting it to stay. Feelings are visitors. They come without permission. They leave without warning. You cannot build a meaningful life around visitors. You must build it around something that remains after they leave. This is where self-discipline quietly separates itself from motivation. Motivation asks, "How do I feel today?" Discipline asks, what matters today? Those are very different questions. One depends on emotion, the other depends on values. Values are slower. They do not shout. They rarely create excitement, but they endure. A person who values honesty does not tell the truth, only when they feel inspired. A caring parent does not love their child only on energetic mornings. A skilled craftsman does not perfect their work only when they wake up motivated. Their actions flow from commitment, not emotion. The same principle applies to every meaningful habit. The strongest routines are not protected by motivation. They are protected by identity. Many people unknowingly make motivation responsible for tasks it was never designed to carry. They expect it to wake them every morning, to help them resist distraction, to carry them through difficult seasons, to rescue them whenever life becomes uncomfortable. It cannot do those things. Motivation is like a spark. It can start a fire, but it cannot keep the fire burning forever. That requires fuel. Daily actions become that fuel. Consistent habits become that fuel. Character becomes that fuel. Without them, every burst of inspiration eventually fades into disappointment. Think about how often people restart their lives. On Mondays, on the first day of the month, on birthdays, at the beginning of a new year, the date changes, hope returns. They feel motivated again. For a short time, everything seems different. Yet, months later, they often find themselves standing in the same place. Why? Because motivation changed. Identity did not. Changing the calendar is easy. Changing the person who looks at the calendar takes much longer. This is why so many resolutions disappear. They begin with emotion. They lack structure. They begin with excitement. They lack repetition. They begin with hope. They lack systems that continue when hope grows quiet. Psychology offers an important lesson here. The human mind prefers immediate comfort over distant rewards. This is not a flaw. It is simply how the mind protects energy. If given a choice between comfort now and benefit later, your first instinct often favors comfort. That instinct explains countless everyday decisions. Checking your phone instead of reading, watching one more episode instead of sleeping, buying something unnecessary instead of saving, speaking impulsively instead of remaining calm. None of these decisions happen because you are incapable. They happen because immediate rewards feel more vivid than future consequences. Motivation temporarily reverses this pattern. For a brief moment, the future feels emotionally real. You can almost experience the benefits in advance. But eventually, today's discomfort becomes louder than tomorrow's reward. When that happens, many people quit. Wise people expect this moment. They understand that the mind naturally seeks comfort. Instead of fighting that truth, they design their lives around it. They reduce unnecessary temptation. They simplify good decisions. They make the desired action easier to begin. Notice something important. They do not depend on feeling stronger. They build environments that require less emotional negotiation. Imagine two different homes. In one home, healthy food is difficult to find. The television remains on. The phone constantly delivers notifications. The running shoes are buried inside a closet. Books collect dust on a high shelf. Everything encourages distraction. Now imagine another home. Water sits on the kitchen table. A book rests beside the bed. Exercise clothes are ready before morning. The phone charges in another room. Nothing dramatic has changed, only the environment. Yet, behavior often changes with it. This reveals another hidden weakness of motivation. It focuses on changing the person. Discipline often begins by changing the environment. Wise people know that every environment quietly shapes behavior. If your surroundings constantly encourage distraction, even strong motivation struggles to survive. If your surroundings quietly support your goals, discipline becomes lighter. Not easy, lighter. Many people admire those who appear incredibly disciplined. They imagine those individuals constantly resisting temptation through heroic willpower. Reality is usually much simpler. Highly disciplined people often make fewer difficult decisions. They prepare, they remove friction, they organize their lives around the person they want to become. Preparation reduces dependence on motivation. This principle appears everywhere. A writer decides tomorrow's first sentence before going to sleep. An athlete prepares clothing the night before training. A student opens the book before leaving the desk. Each action removes one small obstacle. One obstacle may seem insignificant, but several obstacles together often become an excuse. There's another reason motivation fails. It encourages intensity. Discipline values sustainability. When people feel inspired, they often attempt too much. They decide to exercise 2 hours every day. Read 50 pages. Wake before sunrise. Meditate. Journal. Learn a language. Completely change their diet. The plan feels exciting. It also feels exhausting. Eventually, life interrupts. Missing one day feels like failure. Discouragement follows. The entire routine collapses. Not because the goal lacked value, because the pace lacked wisdom. Nature teaches a quieter lesson. The strongest rivers shape mountains through persistence, not force. Trees grow because they continue, not because they hurry. The sunrise arrives every morning without excitement, yet nothing appears more dependable. Consistency always outlasts intensity. That truth applies to every habit worth building. Imagine lighting a candle. A sudden burst of fire burns brightly, then disappears. A steady flame seems less impressive, yet it fills an entire room with light for hours. Your daily actions work the same way. A steady effort changes more than occasional passion. This is why self-discipline often appears ordinary. Its power hides inside repetition. Many people secretly believe that once they become disciplined, everything will feel easier. It will not. The alarm clock still rings. The difficult conversation still happens. The temptation still appears. The difference is not that resistance disappears. The difference is that your relationship with resistance changes. You stop seeing discomfort as a signal to quit. You begin seeing it as part of the process. That shift is profound. Most people interpret resistance emotionally. This feels hard. Wise people interpret it practically. This is what growth feels like. The event is identical. The meaning changes. Meaning influences behavior. There is another trap hidden inside motivation. It often creates unrealistic expectations. You imagine perfect progress, perfect focus, perfect consistency. Then, real life introduces interruptions. You become sick. Travel changes your schedule. Work demands increase. Family responsibilities appear. Suddenly, the perfect routine becomes impossible. Many people abandon everything. Wise people adjust. They understand that consistency does not require perfection. It requires returning again and again and again. The return matters more than the interruption. Anyone can remain disciplined when life feels predictable. Character becomes visible when life becomes uncertain. Perhaps this is why small habits matter so deeply. They survive difficult seasons. A 10-minute walk may continue when an hour-long workout cannot. Reading 1 page may survive when 50 pages feel impossible. Writing 1 paragraph keeps the identity alive. Small habits protect momentum. Momentum protects confidence. Confidence supports consistency. Everything remains connected. Ask yourself an honest question. How many times have you mistaken temporary excitement for lasting commitment? How many plans were built around emotion instead of structure? How often have you blamed yourself for losing motivation when motivation was never meant to stay? There's freedom in answering those questions honestly. Because once you stop expecting motivation to carry your life, you begin building something much stronger. You begin building systems. You begin building habits. You begin building identity. You begin trusting consistency more than inspiration. Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about motivation is believing it comes before action. Often, it comes after. Have you ever noticed how difficult beginning can feel? Yet once you begin, energy appears. A short walk becomes a longer walk. 1 page becomes 10. 5 minutes of work become an hour of focus. Action creates momentum. Momentum often creates motivation, not the other way around. Waiting to feel motivated before acting is like waiting for warmth before lighting a fire. The warmth comes because the fire was lit, not before. Life quietly rewards those willing to begin while still uncertain. There will always be mornings when you feel nothing. No excitement, no confidence, no inspiration. Only the choice between action and postponement. Those ordinary mornings shape far more of your future than extraordinary bursts of enthusiasm ever will. Because motivation may introduce you to a better life, but only discipline invites you to stay there. The strongest people understand this without needing to say it aloud. They appreciate motivation when it arrives. They simply refuse to depend on it. Instead, they place their trust in something quieter. The promises they continue to keep after the excitement fades. The habits they protect when no one is watching. The values that remain unchanged despite changing emotions. Day after day, these quiet choices begin to accumulate. Not dramatically, almost invisibly, until one day people look at their consistency and call it remarkable. They assume extraordinary determination must be hiding beneath it. Yet the truth is far simpler. Extraordinary lives are usually built by ordinary actions repeated long after motivation has gone home. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson of all. The person you become will never be determined by the days you felt unstoppable. It will be determined by the quiet mornings when nothing inside you wanted to continue. And you chose to take the next step anyway. Chapter 5. Train yourself to finish what you start, Mom. People do not have a problem starting. They have a problem staying. The beginning is exciting. It carries possibility. It asks for imagination more than endurance. A new notebook feels full of promise. A new routine seems effortless. A new goal creates hope. For a brief moment, the future appears brighter simply because you have decided to change. And something quiet begins to happen. The excitement fades, the work becomes ordinary. Progress slows, the results remain invisible. This is the place where most dreams quietly disappear. Not because they were impossible, because they became familiar. Human beings are naturally drawn toward novelty. The unfamiliar captures attention. A new book feels more interesting than finishing the old one. A new project appears more exciting than completing yesterday's work. A new plan promises faster results than patiently continuing the current one. The mind often mistakes newness for progress, but beginning something new is not the same as moving forward. Sometimes it is only another way of escaping discomfort. There is a hidden cost to constantly starting over. Each unfinished task leaves something behind. Not only an incomplete project, an incomplete belief. Your mind quietly remembers every abandoned promise, every unfinished goal, every routine that lasted only a few days. Over time, these memories begin forming a dangerous conclusion. I don't finish things. Very few people ever say those words aloud, yet many secretly believe them. Once that belief takes root, every new beginning becomes heavier. You become excited and doubtful at the same time. Hope whispers, memory argues back. You want to trust yourself. But your own history feels difficult to ignore. This is why learning to finish matters far beyond the task itself. Finishing builds identity. It tells your mind, my effort has an ending. My promises have weight. My actions can be trusted. That lesson reaches every part of life. Relationships become steadier. Work becomes more meaningful. Habits become easier to maintain. Confidence grows quietly because your mind has collected evidence that you continue, even after the excitement disappears. Most people imagine that successful individuals possess extraordinary discipline because they never lose enthusiasm. Reality tells another story. They lose enthusiasm often. They simply refuse to let enthusiasm decide whether they continue. There is an important difference between interest and commitment. Interest asks, is this still exciting? Commitment asks, is this still important? The answer to the second question changes much less frequently. Imagine planting a seed. The first few days feel meaningful. You water it carefully. You look for signs of growth. Nothing appears. A week passes. Still nothing. Many people become impatient. They begin wondering whether they planted the wrong seed. Perhaps another plant would grow faster. Perhaps another method would produce quicker results. So they dig up the seed. They plant another one. Again they wait. Again they become impatient. Years pass this way. They continue planting. Very little ever grows. Not because the seeds were wrong, because they never remained long enough for roots to form. Goals work the same way. Roots develop before results appear. Character develops before success appears. The invisible work always comes first. Wise people understand this. They become loyal to the process rather than addicted to immediate progress. This changes everything because visible progress is unpredictable. Some weeks produce remarkable results. Others appear almost empty, but the process remains available every day. You cannot always control outcomes. You can almost always control whether you return to the work. That return is where character is built. Many people quit because they misunderstand boredom. They assume boredom means they have chosen the wrong path. Very often, boredom simply means the activity has become familiar. That familiarity is not failure, it is progress. Think about learning to drive. The first lesson demands complete attention. Every movement feels difficult. Months later, you drive without thinking about every action. The skill became ordinary. Its value did not disappear. Your awareness simply changed. The same happens with discipline. As habits become familiar, excitement naturally fades. Many people mistake this for decline. It is often evidence of growth. The routine no longer feels extraordinary because it has become part of your life. That is exactly what you wanted. Not every meaningful activity should feel exciting forever. Some should become normal. Normal is powerful. Normal determines how you live on ordinary days. Extraordinary moments are rare. Ordinary moments shape nearly everything. This is why the ability to finish depends less on passion than on patience. Patience is often misunderstood. People imagine patience as passive waiting. Real patience is active persistence. It is continuing without constant rewards, continuing without applause, continuing without certainty. That quiet persistence separates lasting change from temporary enthusiasm. Consider someone learning a musical instrument. The first few weeks feel rewarding. Each lesson brings noticeable improvement. Then progress slows, mistakes repeat, practice feels repetitive. Many people stop there, not because they cannot improve, because improvement becomes harder to notice. A different person continues. Not because every practice session feels inspiring, because they have accepted that mastery grows invisibly long before it becomes visible. Years later, people admire their talent. Few appreciate the countless ordinary practice sessions that created it. Self-discipline follows the same path. The invisible days matter most. The days when nothing remarkable happens. The days when you quietly complete the work anyway. There's another reason people struggle to finish. They become emotionally attached to perfection. If everything cannot be done perfectly, they prefer not to continue at all. This way of thinking quietly destroys consistency. A missed day becomes a missed week. A small mistake becomes an excuse to quit entirely. Perfection creates fragile habits. One disruption breaks them. Discipline creates flexible habits. They bend, then they return. Imagine a bridge built from rigid glass. It appears beautiful, but under pressure it shatters. Now imagine a bridge built with materials designed to move slightly with the wind. It survives storms because it adapts. Character grows in a similar way. Rigid expectations often collapse under real life. Flexible commitment survives. Wise people understand that missing one day is not the danger. Refusing to return is. Returning protects identity. Every return says, I am still this person. That message matters, even after failure. Especially after failure. Failure itself rarely destroys confidence. Abandonment does. When you stop returning, your mind begins collecting evidence that quitting is acceptable. When you return quickly, your mind collects different evidence. I stumble, but I continue. That simple sentence can reshape an entire life. There is another habit that quietly weakens commitment. Constant comparison. You begin measuring your progress against someone else's. Their success feels faster. Their discipline appears stronger. Their results seem greater. Without realizing it, your attention leaves your own journey. Comparison steals energy from consistency. You begin chasing appearances instead of progress. Wise people compare themselves differently. They ask, am I becoming more reliable than I was last month? That question creates growth. It keeps attention where it belongs. On your own character, not someone else's timeline. Every meaningful journey contains seasons. Some seasons feel productive, others feel slow. Some feel joyful, others feel heavy. Expecting every season to feel the same creates disappointment. Accepting different seasons creates resilience. Winter is not evidence that spring will never return. It is part of the cycle. The same is true for personal growth. There will be periods when discipline feels natural. There will also be periods when every small action asks for effort. Neither season lasts forever. Those who continue through both become remarkably strong. Many people ask, how do I stay motivated long enough to finish? A quieter question produces a better answer. How do I become someone who finishes regardless of motivation? Notice the difference. The first question depends on emotion. The second depends on identity. Identity outlasts emotion every time. This is why small completions deserve celebration. Finishing today's reading, completing today's walk, keeping today's promise, cleaning today's workspace. These actions may appear ordinary, yet each completion strengthens something invisible, the belief that your effort reaches the end. That belief becomes one of the greatest forms of confidence, not confidence that everything will be easy, confidence that you will remain present long enough to discover what is possible. There is wisdom in lowering the size of the task without lowering the standard of completion. On difficult days, perhaps you read 1 page instead of 20. Write 1 paragraph instead of 5. Exercise for 10 minutes instead of an hour. Completion matters more than intensity. Momentum survives because the identity survives. You remain someone who finishes. The task changed. The persona did not. Many lives are quietly transformed through this principle. not by doing more, but by refusing to abandon the habit completely. There is another truth worth remembering. Finishing one thing often teaches you how to finish many things. The discipline learned through exercise appears at work. The consistency developed through reading influences relationships. The patience gained through learning a skill changes the way you solve problems. Character transfers. That is why every completed promise matters beyond itself. It becomes evidence. Evidence that you can be trusted with larger responsibilities. People often ask when discipline becomes easier. Perhaps easier is not the best word. Perhaps clearer is. The more often you finish, the less you question whether you will. Doubt slowly loses its voice. Not because you eliminated uncertainty, because your actions repeatedly answered it. Eventually, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing the excitement of new beginnings. You begin appreciating the quiet dignity of steady progress. Starting still feels meaningful, but finishing becomes sacred. Because finishing represents something deeper than achievement. It represents integrity. Your words and your actions begin matching each other. The distance between intention and behavior becomes smaller. Peace quietly grows inside that distance. You no longer spend so much energy making promises. You spend it keeping them. That shift changes far more than productivity. It changes your relationship with yourself. Every finished task becomes another conversation, another reminder, another quiet piece of evidence. I do not need perfect conditions. I do not need endless motivation. I simply return until the work is complete. And perhaps that is one of the greatest forms of self-respect a person can cultivate. Not the ability to begin with passion, but the quiet strength to remain present long after the passion has faded. Because life is not ultimately shaped by the number of dreams you begin. It is shaped by the promises you stay with when the journey becomes ordinary. The world often notices remarkable finishes, but it rarely sees the thousands of ordinary decisions that made those finishes possible. Those decisions are never glamorous. They are rarely exciting, yet they carry extraordinary power. One more page, one more repetition, one more honest conversation, one more early morning, one more return after a setback. Each one whispers the same message to your mind. I am becoming someone who can be counted on. And in the end, that may be the greatest reward of all, not simply completing another goal, but slowly becoming the kind of person whose character is so steady that finishing is no longer something they struggle to do. It is simply part of who they are. Chapter 6. Habits that make discipline automatic. The strongest form of discipline is the kind you no longer have to think about. It happens quietly, without drama, without constant debate, without asking yourself the same question every morning. Most people imagine discipline as a daily battle. A battle against laziness, against distraction, against temptation, against themselves. Sometimes it feels exactly that way. But if every good decision must be won through a battle, exhaustion eventually arrives. No one can negotiate with themselves forever. The mind grows tired, willpower fades, attention weakens. Eventually, even the strongest intentions begin to crumble. This is why wise people do not spend their lives trying to become stronger. They spend their lives making fewer unnecessary decisions. That may sound surprising, yet it explains why some people appear remarkably consistent. They are not constantly choosing discipline. They have quietly arranged their lives, so discipline becomes the easiest path to follow. This is the hidden purpose of habits. A habit is not simply something you do often. A habit is a decision you no longer need to make. That distinction changes everything. Imagine tying your shoes. You no longer stop to consider each movement. You do not negotiate with yourself about whether to begin. You simply do it. Years of repetition removed the need for conscious effort. The action became part of you. Now imagine if your morning routine worked the same way. If reading one chapter happened without debate. If taking a walk required no emotional preparation. If preparing tomorrow before going to bed became as natural as brushing your teeth. Life would feel different, not because you had become more motivated, because you had become less dependent on motivation. This is one of the quiet gifts of psychology. The brain loves efficiency. It constantly searches for ways to conserve energy. Anything repeated enough times eventually requires less attention. This can work for you or against you. If you repeatedly reach for your phone whenever boredom appears, your brain learns the pattern. Eventually, boredom itself becomes the signal. The phone appears in your hand before you consciously decide. The habit has taken over. If you repeatedly drink water after waking, your mind begins expecting it. If you read before sleeping every night, the book slowly becomes part of your evening rhythm. The same mechanism shapes both helpful habits and harmful ones. The brain does not judge, it learns. That truth carries enormous responsibility, because every repeated action becomes a lesson. Your mind is always asking, what should become normal? Every habit answers. This is why changing your life rarely begins by chasing extraordinary actions. It begins by changing what feels ordinary. Ordinary behavior becomes ordinary identity, and ordinary identity quietly determines extraordinary outcomes. Most people make one important mistake when trying to build better habits. They focus on outcomes instead of triggers. They say, I want to exercise every day. I want to read more. I want to stop procrastinating. These goals sound reasonable, but habits do not begin with outcomes. They begin with cues. A cue tells the brain, it is time. Think about your own day. Perhaps you brush your teeth after breakfast. Perhaps you check your messages after sitting at your desk. Perhaps you drink coffee immediately after waking. Notice how one action naturally leads into another. The first action becomes the reminder for the second. Wise people understand this pattern. Instead of relying on memory, they connect new habits to existing ones. After I make my morning coffee, I will read one page. After I finish dinner, I will prepare tomorrow's clothes. After I sit at my desk, I will work for 10 focused minutes before checking anything else. The existing habit becomes an anchor. The new habit no longer floats alone. It has somewhere to belong. Small changes like these appear insignificant, yet they remove one invisible burden. The burden of deciding when to begin. Beginning is often the hardest part. A clear trigger removes hesitation. Hesitation quietly disappears. Momentum begins. Momentum is one of the greatest allies of discipline. People often imagine momentum as something dramatic, a wave of unstoppable energy. In reality, momentum usually begins with something almost invisible. One page, one push-up, one deep breath, one honest conversation, one decision not to postpone. Momentum rarely asks for greatness. It asks for movement. Movement changes emotion. This surprises many people. They wait to feel ready before acting, yet action often creates readiness. A person who says, I'll write when inspiration comes, may wait for days. A person who writes one sentence often discovers the second sentence arriving naturally. The first step creates the next. Habits quietly take advantage of this truth. They reduce the distance between intention and action. Another reason habits matter is that they protect you during difficult seasons. Everyone experiences periods of stress, fatigue, disappointment, loss, change. During those times, motivation becomes unreliable. Willpower becomes limited. Emotion becomes unpredictable. Habits continue, not perfectly, but more consistently than inspiration ever could. Imagine a river flowing through a valley. The first stream follows no clear direction. Water spreads everywhere. Over time, however, the river carves a channel. The channel becomes deeper each year. Eventually, the water naturally follows the same path. Your habits create similar channels inside your mind. At first, every action requires effort, then repetition begins shaping a path. Eventually, your mind follows it with less resistance. This explains why bad habits can feel so difficult to change. The old channel already exists. The water naturally flows there. Creating a new channel takes patience, not force. Every time you repeat the healthier behavior, the new path becomes slightly deeper. The old path slowly weakens. Change feels slow because these channels are invisible. Yet invisible does not mean unimportant. Many people quit because they cannot immediately see progress. Wise people trust what cannot yet be seen. They understand that roots develop before branches appear. This brings us to another important principle. Never underestimate the power of reducing friction. Human beings naturally choose the easier path. You already know this from everyday life. If healthy food is prepared, you are more likely to eat it. If your book rests beside your chair, you're more likely to read. If your phone remains across the room, you are less likely to reach for it. These small adjustments appear almost too simple, yet simplicity often wins. Many people believe discipline requires making life harder. Very often, it requires making good decisions easier. That is wisdom, not weakness. Imagine trying to grow a garden. You could spend every morning pulling weeds, or you could improve the soil, arrange proper sunlight and water consistently. One approach constantly fights problems. The other quietly prevents many of them. Habits work in the same way. They create conditions where discipline can grow naturally. The environment becomes a silent partner. Every object around you sends a message. Some invite distraction. Others invite focus. Some encourage delay. Others encourage action. Look around your own room. What story does your environment tell? Does it encourage the person you hope to become or the person you are trying to leave behind? You may discover that discipline begins long before your first decision. It begins with what surrounds that decision. There is another truth worth remembering. The best habits are often invisible. People notice the results, rarely the routine. They admire the calm person. They do not see the evening reflection that protects that calm. They admire the successful writer. They do not see the ordinary mornings spent writing one page at a time. They admire physical strength. They do not notice the countless simple meals chosen over convenient ones. Results attract attention. Habits quietly create results. This is why you should never compare your visible beginning to someone else's invisible routine. You are seeing different parts of the story. Patience becomes easier when you remember that. Another mistake many people make is trying to change everything at once. They redesign their entire life in one weekend. A new diet, a new schedule, a new exercise plan, a new reading habit, a new sleep routine. Everything changes. For a few days, excitement carries them. Then life returns. The new system becomes impossible to maintain. Soon, nothing remains. Wise people build habits differently. They respect the pace of lasting change. They choose one habit. They allow it to become stable. Only then do they build another. This may seem slower, yet it is often much faster in the long run, because what remains always outperforms what repeatedly collapses. Think of laying stones across a river. If each stone is placed carefully, eventually a strong path appears. Rush the work, and the stones become unstable. The crossing becomes dangerous. Your habits deserve the same patience. Every stable habit becomes another place where your future can safely stand. There is also great wisdom in protecting the beginning of a habit. Many people become obsessed with how long they should practice. A better question is, how easy is it to begin? If beginning feels overwhelming, resistance grows. If beginning feels almost effortless, consistency becomes more likely. This is why reading one page often leads to 10. Walking for 5 minutes often becomes 20. Beginning removes the greatest obstacle. The hardest step is rarely the second. It is the first. Another quiet principle deserves attention. Never allow success to become permission for carelessness. People often build a healthy habit. Then they become confident. They stop protecting it. Gradually, the old patterns return. Not suddenly, slowly. One missed morning, one postponed walk, one late night. Nothing appears dangerous. Until months later, the habit has quietly disappeared. Strong people understand something different. They respect ordinary routines even after success arrives, because they know success is maintained by the same habits that created it. Not by celebration, not by confidence alone, by repetition. Every day offers another opportunity to strengthen the identity you have been building, not through extraordinary effort, through ordinary faithfulness. One small promise, kept again. There will always be distractions. The world will continue asking for your attention. Notifications will appear. Unexpected problems will interrupt your plans. People will misunderstand your priorities. Life will rarely become perfectly organized. If your discipline depends on perfect conditions, it will always remain fragile. Habits make discipline stronger, because they continue despite imperfect conditions. They quietly remind you who you are, even when emotions change, even when motivation disappears, even when life becomes complicated. Perhaps that is why the most disciplined people rarely describe themselves as disciplined. To them, many important actions no longer feel like acts of discipline. They simply feel normal. That quiet normality is the destination. Not endless struggle, not constant resistance, but a life where good choices have become familiar companions instead of daily battles. Imagine reaching a point where reading feels as natural as checking the time, where preparing for tomorrow feels as ordinary as locking your door, where keeping your promises no longer requires a dramatic speech or a surge of inspiration. That life is not built through one extraordinary decision. It is built through hundreds of ordinary repetitions that slowly reshape the way your mind understands normal. The remarkable truth is that habits do far more than organize your days. They organize your identity. Every repeated action whispers the same message. This is who you are. If the message is repeated often enough, your mind begins to believe it. Not because someone else convinced you, because your own life became the evidence. And once your habits begin speaking on your behalf, discipline no longer feels like something you borrow for a few motivated days. It becomes something that quietly lives within you, like your heartbeat. Steady, reliable, almost unnoticed, yet supporting every meaningful part of the life you continue to build. Chapter 7. How strong people think differently. Strength is often misunderstood. People imagine it as confidence without fear, as courage without doubt, as discipline without struggle. They picture someone who never hesitates, someone who never feels discouraged, someone who always knows the right answer. But real strength is much quieter than that. Strong people feel fear. They experience uncertainty. They become tired. They question themselves. They fail. The difference is not found in what they feel. It is found in how they think about what they feel. That difference changes everything. Most people believe their thoughts are simply reactions to life. Wise people understand that thoughts are also choices. Not every thought that enters the mind deserves to stay. Not every emotion deserves to become a decision. Not every impulse deserves to become an action. This is where inner strength begins. It begins with the quiet ability to pause between what happens and what you choose to do next. That pause may last only a few seconds, yet entire lives are shaped inside it. Imagine two people receiving the same criticism. The first immediately feels attacked. Their mind begins defending itself. They replay the conversation. They become angry. They spend the rest of the day proving the other person wrong in their imagination. The criticism continues, living inside them long after the conversation is ended. The second person also feels the sting. The words still hurt. But before reacting, they ask themselves a different question. Is there something useful here? If the answer is yes, they learn. If the answer is no, they let it go. The event is identical. The thinking is different. And because the thinking is different, the future becomes different. Strong people understand something that many never discover. Life is not made easier by controlling everything around you. It becomes lighter when you learn to govern what happens within you. This is one of the deepest forms of self-discipline. Not controlling circumstances, controlling interpretation. Every event reaches your mind before it reaches your emotions. Meaning comes first. Emotion follows. If you believe every setback is proof of failure, discouragement becomes natural. If you believe every setback is part of learning, resilience begins to grow. The event has not changed, only its meaning. Meaning shapes emotion. Emotion influences action. Action builds character. Everything begins with the story you tell yourself. Most people never question that story. They simply accept it. I always fail. I'm not disciplined. I'm too late. I've always been this way. These sentences seem harmless. Yet the mind listens carefully. It begins searching for evidence that confirms them. Eventually, the story becomes identity. Wise people are careful with the stories they repeat. Not because they ignore reality, because they understand that repeated thoughts become mental habits. Mental habits become emotional habits. Emotional habits become behavioral habits. Character quietly grows from all three. This is why strong people guard their inner dialogue, not with endless positive thinking, with honest thinking. There's an important difference. Honest thinking does not deny difficulty. It simply refuses to exaggerate it. Suppose something goes wrong. Most people immediately ask, why does this always happen to me? Notice the word always. One difficult moment suddenly becomes a permanent identity. Strong people ask a different question. What can this teach me? The first question creates helplessness. The second creates responsibility. Responsibility is one of the defining qualities of mentally strong people. Not because they blame themselves for everything, because they search for what remains within their control. Control is where peace begins. When you spend your life fighting things you cannot control, frustration becomes constant. Other people's opinions, the weather, traffic, unexpected setbacks, past mistakes, these things consume enormous emotional energy. Strong people notice something different. Energy is limited, attention is valuable. Why waste either on battles that cannot be won? Instead, they quietly return to the same question. What can I influence today? That question appears simple, yet it transforms the way a person lives. Perhaps you cannot control the meeting. You can control how prepared you arrive. Perhaps you cannot control someone's criticism. You can control your response. Perhaps you cannot control yesterday. You can control today's next decision. One question shrinks your world. The other expands your power. There is another quiet difference. Most people seek certainty before acting. Strong people seek clarity through action. Waiting often feels responsible, yet waiting can become another form of avoidance. People say, I'll begin when I'm confident. I'll start when I know enough. I'll change when life settles down. Months become years. Nothing changes. Confidence rarely arrives before action. It usually follows it. The first step creates information. The second creates experience. The third creates confidence. Action teaches what thinking alone never can. This is why mentally strong people are willing to be beginners. They do not protect their pride by avoiding mistakes. They protect their future by accepting them. There is freedom in no longer needing to appear perfect. Perfection creates fear. Growth requires humility. Humility quietly says, I do not know everything, and that is why I can continue learning. The strongest people remain students throughout life, not because they lack wisdom, because they understand wisdom is never finished. Every conversation contains something to observe. Every challenge reveals another weakness to strengthen. Every failure carries another lesson hidden inside it. Curiosity becomes one of their greatest strengths. Not curiosity about gossip or comparison, but curiosity about themselves. Why did I react that way? What belief guided that decision? What habit created this outcome? Those questions build awareness. Awareness always comes before change. You cannot transform what you refuse to notice. Many people try changing behavior without examining thought. It rarely lasts. Behavior is often the visible branch. Thinking is the root. Healthy roots produce healthier branches. This is why mental discipline matters as much as physical discipline. Every repeated thought becomes easier to think again. Imagine walking across a grassy field. The first journey leaves almost no mark. Walk the same path every day. Eventually, a trail appears. Thoughts create similar paths inside the mind. Think fear repeatedly. Fear becomes familiar. Think gratitude repeatedly. Gratitude becomes easier. Think responsibility repeatedly. Responsibility begins feeling natural. The mind follows the paths you strengthen most often. This explains why mentally strong people protect their attention. They understand attention becomes thought. Thought becomes identity. Today, the world competes for your attention more than ever before. Endless opinions, constant comparison, continuous noise. The strongest people develop another habit. They spend time in silence, not because silence solves every problem, because silence reveals them. When the noise disappears, your real thoughts become easier to hear. Some people fear silence. It feels uncomfortable, yet discomfort often reveals truth. Silence asks difficult questions. Are you living according to your values or according to other people's expectations? Are you moving towards your goals or merely reacting to daily distractions? Silence exposes the answers. That is why wise people protect moments of reflection. Reflection prevents repetition of unnecessary mistakes. Another characteristic of strong thinkers is patience, not passive waiting, intentional waiting. Many decisions improve simply because they are not made immediately. Anger fades, emotion settles, perspective returns. The strongest apology is often delayed until wisdom arrives. The strongest decision is often made after the first emotional wave has passed. There is remarkable power in refusing to react instantly. Reaction belongs to impulse. Response belongs to character. That distinction deserves remembering. One is automatic, the other is intentional. Strong people train themselves to respond. They understand that every unnecessary reaction strengthens emotional habits they no longer wish to carry. Consider someone who insults you. Your first impulse may be to answer immediately, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong. Sometimes silence demonstrates greater strength than any argument ever could. Not because silence always wins, because peace is often more valuable than victory. Winning every argument can quietly become another form of losing. Losing time, losing energy, losing inner calm. Strong people choose carefully which battles deserve attention. Not every invitation deserves acceptance, especially invitations to unnecessary conflict. The same principle applies to worry. Most people believe worrying prepares them. Very often, it only exhausts them. Strong people replace worry with preparation. Preparation influences outcome. Worry usually influences only emotions. Again, the question returns, what remains within my control? Every time you answer that question honestly, the mind becomes steadier. Another quiet strength appears in the way resilient people speak about failure. They rarely say, "I am a failure." They say, "That attempt failed." Notice the difference. One sentence attacks identity, the other describes an event. Identity remains protected. Learning remains possible. This way of thinking allows growth to continue without unnecessary shame. Shame often freezes progress. Responsibility restarts it. That is why mentally strong people spend little time defending their past. They spend more time improving their future. There is one final difference that quietly influences everything else. Strong people understand that life is long. Because life is long, they do not panic over temporary setbacks. One bad day does not become a bad life. One mistake does not become a permanent label. One disappointment does not become the end of possibility. Perspective protects resilience. When you remember that today's difficulty represents only one page, you stop believing it is the entire story. You continue writing. That may be the greatest strength of all. Not intelligence, not talent, not confidence. The willingness to continue writing your story instead of allowing one difficult chapter to define it. Ask yourself a few honest questions. When life becomes difficult, what story does your mind immediately tell? Does it create excuses or responsibility? Does it search for blame or growth? Does it react automatically or pause long enough to choose wisely? Every answer quietly shapes the person you are becoming, because your thoughts are never merely passing visitors. Repeated often enough, they become architects. They design the emotional house in which you live every day. Choose those architects carefully, not by forcing perfect thoughts, but by repeatedly choosing wiser ones. The remarkable truth is that mentally strong people are not born with stronger minds. They build stronger minds, one interpretation at a time, one response at a time, one ordinary decision at a time. Day after day, they teach themselves a quiet lesson. Circumstances may influence me, but they do not have to control me. Other people may disappoint me, but they do not define me. Fear may visit. Doubt may appear. Comfort may call my name. Yet none of them make my decisions for me. That responsibility belongs to me. And perhaps that is the deepest form of freedom a human being can ever experience. Not freedom from difficulty, not freedom from emotion, but freedom from becoming a prisoner of every passing thought. Because once you learn to think differently, you begin to live differently. And when you begin to live differently, the person you once hoped to become no longer feels like a distant dream. They quietly begin to appear in the smallest choices you make every single day. Chapter 8. Build confidence through self-control. Most people spend their lives searching for confidence. They believe it is something they must find. Something hidden inside success, inside achievement, inside praise, inside the approval of other people. They imagine confidence arriving on the day they finally accomplish enough, when they earn enough money, when they become attractive enough, when they are respected enough, when everyone finally recognizes their value. But confidence built on changing circumstances is always fragile. The moment praise disappears, confidence begins to disappear with it. The moment failure arrives, self-belief begins to shake. The moment criticism appears, uncertainty quietly returns. That kind of confidence is borrowed. It depends on conditions outside your control. Real confidence grows somewhere much quieter. It grows every time you choose yourself over your impulses. Every time you keep a promise no one else even knows you made. Every time you pause before reacting. Every time you stay faithful to your values when convenience offers an easier path. That is where confidence begins. Not in the applause of the world, but in the evidence you quietly collect about yourself. Confidence is not built by what happens to you. It is built by what you repeatedly prove to yourself. This is why self-control matters so deeply. Self-control is not simply the ability to say no. It is the ability to say yes to the person you are trying to become. Every impulse asks for immediate satisfaction. Every disciplined choice asks for lasting fulfillment. The conflict between the two exists inside every human being. No one escapes it. Some simply become better at recognizing it. Imagine someone standing in front of a bakery after promising themselves to eat differently. The smell is inviting. The display is beautiful. The purchase would take only a few seconds. Nothing dramatic appears to be at stake, yet something much larger is quietly happening. A conversation is taking place. One voice says, "You deserve this." Another voice asks, "What do you truly want?" Neither voice is evil. Neither voice is perfect. One speaks for the present. The other speaks for the future. Self-control is not the act of silencing one voice forever. It is learning which voice deserves your trust. Most people believe that strong individuals never experience temptation. The opposite is true. They experience it often. They have simply stopped believing that every desire deserves obedience. That realization changes everything. You are not your impulses. You are the one observing them. That small distinction creates enormous freedom. Thoughts appear, emotions rise, urges come and go. Yet between every impulse and every action lies a space. Inside that space lives your character. Most lives are shaped not by extraordinary decisions, but by how often that space is respected. The pause may last only a few seconds, sometimes only one breath, but within that breath, futures quietly change. There is a reason emotional control feels so difficult. Emotions are immediate. Consequences are delayed. Anger feels powerful now. Regret arrives later. Comfort feels rewarding now. Poor health arrives later. Distraction feels enjoyable now. Lost opportunity appears later. The human mind naturally pays greater attention to what it experiences immediately. Self-control teaches the mind to value what cannot yet be seen. This is one of the deepest forms of wisdom, to respect tomorrow without abandoning today. Many people think discipline requires becoming emotionally cold. It does not. Self-control is not the absence of emotion. It is the refusal to become controlled by emotion. You can feel anger without becoming cruel. You can feel fear without becoming paralyzed. You can feel disappointment without surrendering. Emotion itself is never the enemy. Automatic reaction is. Wise people understand that feelings deserve acknowledgement, not authority. There is a profound difference between listening to your emotions and allowing them to govern your life. Emotions carry information. They do not always carry wisdom. Sometimes fear protects you. Sometimes fear limits you. Sometimes anger reveals injustice. Sometimes anger hides insecurity. Learning the difference requires attention, not suppression. The strongest people do not fight every emotion. They become curious about them. Instead of asking, "How do I stop feeling this?" they ask, "What is this feeling trying to show me?" Curiosity creates awareness. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates freedom. This is why self-control begins with observation. Before changing behavior, notice it. Notice how quickly your hand reaches for your phone when silence appears. Notice how easily frustration changes your tone. Notice how often boredom sends you searching for distraction. These moments seem ordinary, yet they reveal invisible patterns. Patterns become habits. Habits become identity. The person who observes these patterns honestly has already taken the first step toward changing them. Most people avoid observation because they fear judgment. They believe noticing weakness means admitting failure. Wise people understand something different. You cannot improve what you refuse to see. Awareness is never an insult, it is an invitation. Imagine standing beside a river. Leaves float past, branches drift with the current. You watch them without chasing each one. Thoughts can be observed in the same way. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every emotion deserves immediate action. Some simply need space to pass. This quiet observation weakens impulsive behavior. You begin realizing that every urge has a beginning, a middle, an end. Very few urges remain forever. The problem is that most people act before discovering this. They mistake urgency for necessity. Strong people learn to wait, not endlessly. Just long enough for wisdom to arrive. Sometimes 10 seconds changes an entire conversation. Sometimes one deep breath prevents years of regret. Sometimes walking away for 5 minutes saves a relationship. Self-control often looks invisible from the outside. Inside, however, it is shaping character. There is another hidden reward. Every act of self-control increases self-trust. Imagine making a promise to yourself. I will remain calm during this conversation. The discussion becomes difficult. Your emotions rise, yet you pause. You listen, you respond thoughtfully. Later that evening, no one congratulates you. No one applauds your restraint, yet your mind quietly notices. I kept my word. That evidence becomes confidence. This is why confidence cannot be separated from integrity. Integrity means your actions continue matching your values, even when emotions invite another direction. Every moment of integrity strengthens your relationship with yourself. That relationship influences every other relationship in your life. If you cannot trust yourself, trusting your future becomes difficult. When self-trust grows, courage quietly follows. You become willing to accept larger responsibilities, larger challenges, longer commitments, not because fear disappeared, because trust became stronger than fear. Many people misunderstand courage. They believe courageous people act without fear. Real courage often looks different. It says, I feel afraid, and I will still act according to my values. That is self-control, not eliminating emotion, choosing direction despite emotion. There's another habit mentally strong people develop. They separate discomfort from danger. Modern life often teaches the opposite. Anything uncomfortable appears wrong. Anything difficult appears unhealthy. Yet growth almost always includes discomfort. Exercise challenges the body. Learning challenges the mind. Honest conversations challenge the heart. Responsibility challenges comfort. Discomfort itself tells you very little. The important question is, what kind of discomfort is this? Is it the discomfort of growth, or the discomfort of avoiding responsibility? Those two experiences feel similar. Their outcomes are completely different. Wise people become skilled at recognizing the difference. This skill allows them to choose temporary discomfort in exchange for lasting peace. Most people reverse the trade. They choose temporary comfort, then quietly inherit lasting frustration. Self-control protects you from making that exchange too often. It reminds you that every choice carries two prices. the price of discipline and the price of regret. Both require payment. Only one creates a better future. There is remarkable peace in accepting this truth. Once you stop searching for a life without difficulty, you begin choosing difficulties more wisely. The discomfort of waking early, or the discomfort of feeling unprepared, the discomfort of saving money, or the discomfort of financial stress, the discomfort of honest practice, or the discomfort of unrealized potential. Life rarely removes discomfort. It simply allows you to choose which form you will carry. Strong people choose consciously. Another quiet strength grows from delayed gratification. Imagine placing a seed into the soil. Nothing visible happens immediately. Days pass. The earth appears unchanged. Yet beneath the surface, life has already begun. Self-control often feels exactly like this. You refuse an unnecessary purchase. Nothing changes today. You complete another workout. The mirror looks the same. You remain patient during conflict. The relationship does not instantly improve. Still, something important is happening beneath the surface. Identity is growing roots. The visible results arrive later. The invisible transformation begins immediately. People who lack patience often abandon this stage. They cannot see the roots, so they assume nothing is growing. Wise people trust in visible progress. Not blindly, patiently. They understand that many of life's greatest rewards arrive quietly. There's another reason self-control builds confidence. It reduces inner conflict. Many people live divided lives. Their values point one direction. Their habits move another. Every evening they promise to change. Every morning they repeat yesterday. This creates constant tension. The mind becomes tired from carrying two versions of the same person, the person they wish to be, and the person their actions repeatedly create. Self-control slowly brings these two people together. Words begin matching actions. Intentions begin matching behavior. Inner peace grows naturally, not because life became easier, because contradiction became smaller. Ask yourself a simple question. What promises have you made to yourself recently? Not promises to impress others, quiet promises, private promises. How many of them survived difficult emotions? How many survived inconvenience? How many survived ordinary life? Your answers are not reasons for shame. They are opportunities for awareness. Every kept promise becomes another stone in the foundation of confidence. Every returned effort repairs trust. No matter how many promises have been broken before, today's promise still carries power. There is no perfect moment to become more disciplined. Only the next honest decision, the next calm response, the next opportunity to choose your future over your impulse. That is how confidence grows. Not through one heroic act, but through thousands of almost invisible moments when no one else notices your restraint. Eventually, those moments begin changing the way you walk through the world. You stop seeking constant reassurance. You become less dependent on praise, less controlled by criticism, less shaken by temporary failure. Not because you believe you are better than others, because you have learned something much more valuable. You know you can depend on yourself, and perhaps there is no greater confidence than that. Not the confidence that everything will work out exactly as planned, but the quiet confidence that whatever happens, you will respond with honesty, patience, and self-control. Because those qualities no longer depend on perfect circumstances. They have become part of your character. They travel with you into every challenge, every conversation, every disappointment, every opportunity. And over time, you discover something remarkable. The greatest victory in life was never gaining control over other people. It was quietly gaining control over the person you become whenever life asks you to choose between impulse and principle. That victory cannot be taken away by failure. It cannot be weakened by criticism. It cannot be borrowed from success. It is built patiently, one decision at a time, until confidence no longer feels like something you are searching for. It becomes something you carry. Chapter 9. Stay consistent when nobody is watching. Character is easiest to imitate when someone is watching. It is hardest to maintain when no one is. That is where the truth quietly appears. Many people live two different lives. One life exists in public. The other exists in private. In public, they appear disciplined, reliable, focused. They speak about values, they make promises, they inspire others. But when the room becomes empty, something changes. The routine disappears. The standards become flexible. The promises quietly fade. Not because they intended to deceive anyone, because they never learned the difference between performing discipline and living it. Performance depends on an audience. Character does not. This distinction may be one of the most important lessons a person can learn. The world often rewards appearances. Character rewards consistency. Appearances can be created in moments. Consistency is created over years. Imagine two builders constructing identical houses. The first spends all of his energy making the front of the house beautiful. Fresh paint, elegant windows, perfect landscaping. The second builder works mostly where no one can see. He strengthens the foundation. He measures carefully. He reinforces every hidden beam. From the street, the first house appears more impressive, but when the storms arrive, appearances lose their value. Foundations begin telling the truth. Human character follows the same principle. The foundation of your life is built in moments that receive no applause. The workout completed in an empty room. The page read before sunrise. The promise kept without anyone checking. The apology made when no reputation could be gained. These moments seem invisible, yet they quietly become the strongest parts of you. Most people underestimate private decisions because they confuse visibility with importance. If nobody notices, they assume it does not matter. But your mind notices. Always. Your mind remembers every excuse, every act of courage, every promise kept, every shortcut taken. Long after other people forget, your own memory continues collecting evidence. That evidence becomes self-trust. This is why consistency in private matters far more than occasional excellence in public. Your future is not shaped by what impresses strangers. It is shaped by what repeatedly convinces your own mind that you are reliable. There is something deeply peaceful about becoming the same person everywhere, not pretending, not adjusting your values depending on who is present, not becoming disciplined only when accountability exists. Integrity quietly removes the burden of wearing different masks. You no longer need to remember who you were pretending to be. You simply become yourself. Many people misunderstand accountability. They believe they need someone constantly encouraging them, checking their progress, reminding them to continue. At the beginning, accountability can be helpful. Teachers matter, coaches matter, friends matter, support matters. But eventually something must change. If discipline always depends on another person's presence, your freedom remains incomplete. Real maturity arrives when your own standards become stronger than external pressure. Think about childhood. A child behaves because someone is watching. An adult learns to behave according to principles. The difference is profound. External control gradually becomes internal responsibility. That transition defines emotional maturity. The strongest people no longer need constant supervision. Their values supervise them. This is one of the hidden rewards of self-discipline. You become easier to trust. Not only by others, by yourself. Imagine making a promise on a quiet evening. No announcement, no social media post, no conversation, only a private commitment. Tomorrow morning, you will wake 30 minutes earlier. When morning comes, nobody would know if you stayed in bed. No criticism would follow. No punishment would appear. Only one person would know. You. That moment reveals far more than whether you wake early. It reveals the relationship you have with your own word. Every private promise asks the same silent question. Does my word still mean something when no one else hears it? Many people answer without realizing it. Some answer with excuses, others answer with action. Over time, those answers become identity. Wise people understand this. They stop making commitments for attention. They begin making commitments for alignment. Alignment means your values and your behavior quietly move together. That unity creates remarkable peace. There is another reason consistency matters. It protects you from becoming emotionally dependent on recognition. Is pleasant. Recognition can encourage growth. But if your effort exists only where applause exists, your progress becomes fragile. Life contains many seasons where no one notices your work. Months of preparation, years of practice, quiet mornings, lonely evenings, invisible improvement. If you require constant recognition, these seasons become unbearable. If your purpose grows from something deeper, these seasons become transformative. Consider a tree growing in a forest. For years, its roots spread underground. No one admires them. Visitors see only the surface. Yet the roots determine whether the tree survives future storms. Roots grow in darkness. Character grows the same way. The invisible years often matter most. People admire overnight success. Very few witness the thousands of unnoticed days beneath it. There is wisdom in becoming comfortable with invisible progress, not because recognition is wrong, because recognition is unreliable. Some worthy efforts are never celebrated. Some ordinary acts of integrity receive no applause. Still they matter. Perhaps they matter most. The quiet promise you keep when no reward exists strengthens your character more deeply than the promise you keep for admiration. Another habit mentally strong people develop is keeping agreements with themselves as seriously as agreements with others. Imagine telling a friend, "I'll meet you at 7. You arrive. Why? Because your word matters. Now imagine telling yourself, "I'll begin working at 7. The temptation to negotiate suddenly appears. Maybe 7:30, perhaps after one more video. Tomorrow would be better. Notice the difference. Many people respect commitments to others more than commitments to themselves. Eventually, this creates an unhealthy relationship. You become dependable for everyone except the person who needs you most. Wise people reverse this pattern, not through selfishness, through self-respect. They understand that every kept promise strengthens the foundation beneath every future promise. Reliability begins within. There's another quiet truth. Consistency does not mean intensity. Many people remain consistent for a few exhausting weeks, then disappear for months. Their effort burns brightly, then burns out. Strong people choose another rhythm, steady, patient, repeatable. They understand that ordinary discipline outperforms occasional greatness. Imagine filling a glass with 1 drop of water every minute. The progress appears slow, almost invisible. Leave it long enough and the glass becomes full. Now imagine pouring an entire bucket once each month but forgetting every other day. Intensity impresses, consistency transforms. Life responds more faithfully to repetition than enthusiasm. This principle appears in every meaningful skill. Musicians practice scales. Athletes repeat movements. Writers fill ordinary pages. Craftsmen refine familiar techniques. The work often looks repetitive, yet repetition quietly creates excellence. Character follows the same law. The greatest improvements usually happen while nothing appears dramatic. There is another challenge that appears when nobody is watching. Temptation becomes easier to justify. No one will know. It doesn't really matter. It's only this once. These sentences seem harmless, yet they quietly reshape identity. The problem is rarely the action itself. The problem is the message it teaches. My standards change when convenience appears. That lesson spreads. Soon the same thinking appears elsewhere. One excuse becomes another. Character weakens gradually, rarely suddenly. The opposite is equally true. Every time you quietly honor your principles despite having an easy opportunity not to, another message appears. My values remain stable. That stability becomes one of the greatest forms of inner strength. People begin trusting you. More importantly, you begin trusting yourself. There is tremendous peace in knowing your behavior does not depend on observation. Imagine standing alone in a room. No cameras, no audience, no expectations. Would your habits remain the same? Would your honesty remain the same? Would your effort remain the same? These questions are uncomfortable. They are also liberating because they reveal where growth is still possible. Most people fear these questions. Wise people welcome them. Awareness always arrives before transformation. There's another misunderstanding worth exploring. Some people believe discipline means never resting, never relaxing, never enjoying life. That is not discipline. That is imbalance. Real consistency includes recovery. Rest is not the opposite of discipline. Purposeful rest supports discipline. The difference lies in intention. Rest restores. Escapism avoids. Strong people know when they are recovering. They also know when they are merely postponing responsibility. Only honesty can tell the difference. Honesty becomes easier when no audience exists. Without performance, truth quietly appears. This is why solitude can become such a valuable teacher. When distractions disappear, your habits become visible. When applause disappears, your motives become clear. When nobody is watching, you finally meet the person your routines have been creating. Do not fear that meeting. Learn from it. There will be mornings when your effort seems invisible, days when progress cannot be measured, weeks when no one notices the work you continue doing. Remember this: the greatest builders often spend more time laying foundations than raising walls. The foundation always comes first. Your private consistency is building something stronger than today's results. It is building tomorrow's identity. Ask yourself a few quiet questions. Who am I when no one expects anything from me? What habits survive without accountability? What promises still matter when there is no applause waiting at the end? The answers are not meant to create guilt. They are invitations. Invitations to become a person whose standards remain unchanged by circumstance, whose integrity survives convenience, whose discipline continues even when recognition disappears. Because eventually, life rewards those invisible choices. Not always immediately, not always publicly, but inevitably. Your calm becomes steadier. Your confidence becomes quieter. Your decisions become clearer. Your relationships become stronger. Not because you learned how to impress the world, because you learned how to remain faithful to yourself. And perhaps that is the deepest meaning of consistency. Not repeating an action every day without fail, but returning to your principles often enough that they become stronger than your moods, stronger than your excuses, and stronger than the desire to take the easier path. When no one would ever know, there comes a moment, after enough ordinary days have quietly passed, when discipline no longer feels like something you perform. It feels like home. You stop asking whether anyone noticed. You stop wondering whether your effort was appreciated. You stop measuring your worth by visible rewards. Instead, you discover a quieter satisfaction. The satisfaction of ending each day knowing that the person you presented to the world was the same person you remained when the world looked away. That kind of peace cannot be purchased. It cannot be borrowed. It cannot be given by praise or taken away by criticism. It is earned in silence, one unseen decision, one kept promise, one ordinary day at a time. And in the end, those unseen days become the strongest proof that the life you are building rests on something far more durable than motivation or recognition. It rests on character. Chapter 10. Become the person you can always trust. There is one relationship that follows you through every moment of your life. It begins before anyone knows your name. It remains when everyone else leaves. It speaks to you in moments of success. It speaks to you in moments of failure. It waits for you every morning. It follows you every night. It is your relationship with yourself. Everything else in life grows from it. Your work, your friendships, your habits, your ambitions, your peace. Even the way you see the future is influenced by the way you see yourself. Yet this relationship is often the one people neglect the most. They spend years trying to earn the trust of employers, friends, partners, strangers. They become dependable for everyone around them. They answer messages on time. They arrive when they promised. They honor commitments. They work hard to protect their reputation. But when it comes to themselves, something changes. Promises become optional. Goals become negotiable. Standards quietly shift whenever life becomes inconvenient. The result is subtle. No one else may notice. But deep inside, trust begins to disappear. And when trust disappears, something else quietly takes its place. Doubt. Not loud doubt. Not dramatic doubt. The quiet kind. The kind that whispers before every new beginning. Said this before. You probably won't finish. You always quit. These thoughts do not appear because your mind is cruel. They appear because your mind remembers. Your memory is not judging you. It is protecting you. It has learned from repetition. Every broken promise became another lesson. Every abandoned habit became another piece of evidence. Your mind simply began believing what your actions repeatedly taught it. That realization may feel uncomfortable. It is also one of the most hopeful truths you can discover, because if repeated actions created mistrust, repeated actions can rebuild trust. Trust is never restored through one emotional decision. It is restored through consistency, the same way it was lost, slowly, quietly, patiently. Imagine someone damaging a beautiful bridge, one stone at a time. The bridge becomes weaker. Eventually, people stop crossing it. Now imagine rebuilding that bridge. One stone returns, then another. Progress appears slow, yet every stone matters. One day the bridge becomes strong enough to carry weight again. Trust in yourself works exactly the same way. You do not repair years of broken promises with one perfect week. You repair them with one honest decision, repeated often enough that your mind begins believing you again. Many people become discouraged because the rebuilding feels slow. They expect immediate confidence, immediate certainty, immediate transformation. But trust has never grown that way. Think about the people you trust most. Did trust appear after one conversation, one favor, one kind word? Of course not. Trust grew through repeated reliability, again and again and again. Your relationship with yourself deserves the same patience. There is another misunderstanding worth noticing. People often believe they must become extraordinary before they can respect themselves. They imagine confidence waiting at the top of some distant mountain after enough success, enough discipline, enough achievement. Yet, self-respect rarely begins there. It begins in much quieter places, making your bed because you said you would, returning the shopping cart, finishing the page, keeping the appointment you made with yourself, speaking honestly when dishonesty would be easier. These moments appear too small to matter, yet they quietly answer one important question. Does my word still have value? Every kept promise strengthens the answer. Over time, you stop hoping that you are reliable. You know it, not because someone praised you, because your life became the evidence. This is one of the deepest forms of confidence. Not believing you will never fail, believing that failure will not stop you from returning. That kind of confidence cannot be borrowed. It cannot be performed. It grows from lived experience. Every ordinary day becomes another reminder. I trust myself because I have earned that trust. There is tremendous freedom in reaching that point. The need for constant external validation begins to fade. You appreciate encouragement, but you no longer depend on it. You welcome recognition, but you no longer chase it. Your worth becomes less connected to applause, more connected to integrity. Integrity is one of the quietest forms of strength. It asks only one thing, that your private life and your public life gradually become the same. Not perfect, honest. When your words match your actions, your mind becomes peaceful. There's no constant argument inside, no endless negotiation, no exhausting attempt to become someone different every Monday morning. You simply continue. That continuation creates calm. People often ask what success feels like. Many imagine excitement, celebration, achievement. Sometimes success feels like those things. More often, it feels like peace. The peace of knowing you did what you said you would do. The peace of lying down at night without making another excuse. The peace of carrying less regret into tomorrow. Perhaps peace has always been one of the greatest rewards of self-discipline, not because discipline removes difficulty, because it removes unnecessary conflict with yourself. There is another important truth. Trusting yourself does not mean believing you will never make mistakes. It means believing you will face your mistakes honestly, without denial, without endless shame, without abandoning yourself. Everyone stumbles. Strong people return. That is the difference. Returning is one of the purest expressions of self-respect. Imagine learning to walk as a child. You fall again and again. No one expects perfection. No one concludes that falling means walking is impossible. Adults often forget this wisdom. One mistake becomes proof that change cannot happen. One setback becomes an excuse to surrender. Yet growth has never followed that logic. Every meaningful skill contains failure. Every worthwhile relationship contains misunderstanding. Every disciplined life contains imperfect days. Imperfection is not the opposite of discipline. Giving up is. This understanding creates remarkable resilience. You stop fearing mistakes. You begin fearing only one thing, remaining the same because you refuse to learn. Learning requires humility. Humility quietly says, I still have room to grow. Those words are not signs of weakness, they are signs of strength. The strongest people rarely believe they have finished becoming who they can be. They remain curious, open, willing to improve, not because they dislike themselves, because they respect themselves enough to continue growing. There is wisdom in becoming your own safest place, not your easiest place, your safest. A safe place tells the truth. A safe place allows mistakes. A safe place encourages responsibility. Many people speak to themselves more harshly than they would ever speak to someone they love. Every failure becomes an attack. Every delay becomes another reason for self-contempt. Yet shame rarely creates lasting discipline. Understanding does. Responsibility does. Compassion combined with honesty becomes surprisingly powerful. Imagine encouraging a child learning something difficult. Would you scream after every mistake? Would you tell them they will never improve? Of course not. You would correct them patiently. Why should your own growth deserve less kindness? Kindness is not lowering your standards. It is refusing to destroy yourself while reaching them. The healthiest discipline contains both firmness and grace, firm enough to continue, gentle enough to return after falling. Life becomes lighter when these two qualities work together. Another quiet change begins happening as self-trust grows. Decision-making becomes simpler, not because life becomes less complicated, because your values become clearer. Every decision no longer asks, "What do I feel like doing?" Instead, it asks, "What kind of person do I want to be in this moment?" That question reduces confusion. Your identity becomes a compass. Not every path looks attractive. Not every shortcut feels acceptable. Direction becomes more important than temptation. Wise people rarely waste energy asking whether the easy path exists. They ask whether it aligns with their character. Character quietly answers. There's another gift hidden inside self-trust: freedom. Not freedom from responsibility, freedom from constant internal negotiation. Imagine making a promise and immediately believing yourself. Imagine setting a goal without secretly expecting disappointment. Imagine planning for the future without hearing an inner voice questioning your commitment. That freedom changes everything. It allows hope to become practical instead of imaginary. Dreams become plans, plans become habits, habits become identity. Identity becomes destiny. Not because fate changed, because you changed. The remarkable truth is that every chapter of your life has been preparing you for this realization. Discipline was never about punishment. It was never about forcing yourself through endless struggle. It was never about becoming cold, emotionless, or perfect. It was always about trust. Trust that your words still matter. Trust that your choices still shape your future. Trust that every ordinary day carries another opportunity to become the person you hope to meet. Perhaps that person has never been as far away as you imagined. Perhaps they have been waiting inside every small decision you postponed, inside every promise you almost kept, inside every moment when you wondered whether one more effort was worth making. It was. It always was. Because no disciplined action is ever truly about the action itself. Every action quietly answers the same lifelong question: can I depend on myself? Spend enough years answering that question with honesty, with patience, with consistency, and something extraordinary begins to happen. The future no longer feels like a place you hope to reach someday. It becomes something you are quietly building every time you choose principle over impulse, responsibility over excuses, and action over empty intention. One promise, one habit, one ordinary day at a time. And then, almost without noticing when it happened, you become the person you once admired from a distance. Not because your life became perfect, not because every fear disappeared, not because every dream came true, but because you finally possess something no achievement, no title, no amount of praise can ever replace. The quiet certainty that wherever life leads you, whatever challenges wait ahead, whatever victories or disappointments tomorrow may bring, you will meet them with someone you can always count on: yourself.